Okay, so let's start. So yeah, I've just been on solitary retreat. I got back last night, and yeah, so I'm going to be just in this few minutes talking before we meditate. Just draw on something that was coming up in my solitary, and that I was listening to a particular teacher who had something that was helpful to say. So it wasn't Utejaniya, it was from a different tradition, but it's still helpful. So I wanted to just say something about the place of the hindrances, or perhaps particularly antidotes, hindrances, antidotes, and the more active element that is there in receptive practice. It's definitely activeness in the service of receptivity. You know, the activity is definitely sort of secondary, but it does go hand in hand. So I was remembering a meditation teacher, some of you will have come across, called Sangapala, very good meditation teacher. And he said, meditation isn't difficult. We simply lose the initiative. Yes, I like this. It's not that it's difficult, it's that we lose the initiative. And that active element, in that active element, we can talk about that as keeping the initiative. When we remember to be aware, when we remind ourselves to be aware, we're keeping hold of where we're going in the practice, or why we're doing it, our purpose. And when we lose the initiative, which of course we will and we do, the habits of the poisons, the habits of greed, hatred, but I think particularly delusion take over. Those habits take over. So every moment of awareness is that momentary awakeness, a sort of active choosing to be in the moment. So we could give that initiative to the poison, to the kleshas, or to awareness by training the mind. So the hindrances are simply another way, that perhaps our usual way, more familiar to most of us. When we started in Triratna, we probably heard much more about the hindrances than about the poisons. So the hindrance is another way of categorizing what the mind is getting up to, what's going on in the mind. And in receptive practice, as you will know, mainly we're bringing awareness to the hindrance, there's a recognition of what's happening, and a clear awareness. And that recognition also contains the right view aspect of it. We know a hindrance for what it is. We perhaps more familiar, we know the poison for what it is. We know this is greed in the mind. And the hindrances are just coming at it from another angle, and I think can be helpful. Well, very helpful. But another way, if you like, that's our first way, is just recognizing, just being aware of what's happening. But another way is quite gently, but definitely more actively playing with the quality of the mind. When we recognize that there's a hindrance there, we can do a little bit more. And this is perhaps particularly with sloth and torpor, but also restlessness. I think this particular little way of working with the mind is helpful with both. So we can, perhaps with a sleepy quality of mind, that perhaps there's dullness, and with that dullness, the mind can often wander a bit and feel like it's actually just not quite present. We're not quite there. And in that, the suggestion is to zoom out, if you like. If you think of your mind a little bit like a camera, it's got this capacity to zoom out or zoom in, actually. So let the awareness be really wide. Let it sort of take in lots of things, not by going out to them in that very tiring sort of way, but just zooming out. And that can really bring a bit more energy and a bit more aliveness into the mind. So it's a big, spacious quality of awareness. And include the body experience in that, so that it's also sort of has a grounded aspect. But alternately, we can zoom in close. So there's a real sort of delicacy and precision in what's being known in that moment, what's being noticed, which has a similar sort of quality of the mind, helping the mind be present and helping it sort of be awake. So you can do both with sleepiness, but you can also do both with restlessness, particularly physical restlessness, when it's a bit more difficult to stay on the cushion. So maybe zooming in to the sort of micro sensations that are going on in the body, really playing with that, and having the spirit of play is really helpful. What can be noticed? Really sort of fine-tuning the awareness, and maybe going from that to zooming right out, really sort of big. So there's a whole sort of universe of sensations, physical sensations, sound sensations. Maybe if your eyes are open, then there's the whole visual field. And again, not reaching out and trying to know all these things individually, but it being a little bit like, I've talked about a kaleidoscope before, so it can be a little bit like that with all these different sort of colors going on. But it could also be a little bit like a sparkler, one of those little fireworks that you hold when it goes. There's just loads happening. So we're just aware of it in a broad way, but from a very open big perspective. So you can try those. You can try those if you like. If you notice that the mind is a bit dull or sleepy, is not quite connecting, or alternately, you're finding it hard to sit on the cushion. Some sort of quality of restlessness in the mind. So do it quite deliberately, but as I say, playfully, and in the spirit of what might happen here. What might happen when I just take the initiative, take hold of the mind, of the awareness in a particularly open sort of way, and see what happens. See what happens with the hindrance, but also see what happens with the quality of the awareness. And in case you're wondering where I was picking this up from, it was Rob Berbea, or Berbea, I think is who's talking. He's mainly talking about jhana practice, but I just felt like this was perhaps applicable to what we're doing here. So let's end the recording.